All right, and now we're just gonna have that 15-second delay that Facebook is so famous for as I log into all of my screens where I'll be monitoring the comments over here for all our mighty mystery friends, fam, and community. All right, we are live. Welcome, mighty mystery fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I am thrilled to be here with my friend and fellow author, Jason Pinter, whose brand new book, Stranger at the Door, is out today. This is the second book in his Rachel Marin series. Jason, we are thrilled to have you back on A Mighty Blaze. Welcome. Tell us about your book.
I am thrilled to be back on Mighty Blaze, and I feel way under-caffeinated right now. Yeah, so the Stranger at the Door, which is this book, in case you missed Sarah holding it up, it's the second book in the Rachel Marin series. Rachel Marin is a single mother who underwent a very traumatic event, and in the aftermath of that, moved her and her small children to a small town to get away, reinvent themselves, but ended up sort of embroiled in a murder mystery. In the meantime, because sort of society failed her and her children, she steeled herself to become a protector. She basically honed her body, honed her mind to be able to protect her family because she felt nobody else could. So in the second book, she's got a bit of a peace after the events of the first book. She's in a better place. She's got a job as a consultant with the local police department. She's tentatively entered into a relationship with the detective who she butted heads with in the first book, and she's doing pretty well until her son's school teacher is gruesomely murdered, who left a note for Rachel, and suddenly she's embroiled in another murder. But at the same time, there's this sort of charismatic businessman who starts to take her son under his wing because his son is sort of still very emotionally fragile from the events. And suddenly Rachel finds herself not only having to investigate a murder, but finds her son being sort of sucked into this sort of cult-like Amway scheme, and she's potentially going to lose her son in the midst of all this, and she finds herself being pulled in a million different ways, and of course both stories intertwine, and it's hopefully a riveting read. I love these characters. It's a thriller with heart, and I love these characters, and if you read Hideaway, I think you'll love to see where the characters go. There's some new characters. There's a couple characters from the first book that maybe return that you didn't expect to return, and it's great to sort of have this out in the open after a very long time.
Yay! Well, we are very excited to have you and to talk about all things Rachel Marin and Stranger at the Door. I just want to welcome everybody from Facebook. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy New Year.
Hi, Facebook.
If you've been here before, you know how it works. And if you're new, here's how it works. I am giving you unadulterated access to this featured author, Jason, so you can pick his brain about his writing process, about his secret chef obsession, about anything that's weighing on your mind. No holds barred here on A Mighty Blaze. So just go ahead and type the questions in the comment box. I'm monitoring them on my second screen because I'm fancy like that, and I'll get them right over to Jason. So I just want to say hi to Lindy, hi to Gail. Gail saying hi, Sarah, hi. Hi to Yaneth, hi Darlene, hi Agnes, and Nissa, welcome back. She's giving us tons of hearts. Hi Barbara, Diane, and Nissa saying hi Sarah and Jason. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So let us know what questions you have for Jason. I know it always takes me a minute to think of them. Welcome, Conchetta. So while you're thinking, I have got to share just a few words of praise that this book has earned, because my God, Jason, the praise is just coming in left and right. Publishers Weekly gave Stranger a starred review, calling the book outstanding, saying this powerful family values thriller is a convincing, moving performance. Wow. Booklist also awarded Stranger a starred review, saying this book and the second book in the Rachel Marin series maintains the promise of the first, Hideaway, with full-bodied characters in a compelling plot and graphic elements leavened by doses of humanity. So, Jason, you are a star, and Publishers Weekly Booklist certainly agreeing. So let's pause there because I got a few more I want to share, but let's pause there and talk about the process of creating a convincing, moving performance, as Publishers Weekly said, a compelling plot with graphic elements leavened by doses of humanity by Booklist. How do you do that? Because that's the one thing I really notice and love about your books.
Thank you. I think it's really important to me. I think every book sort of starts with a character. To me, before I even sort of wrote one page of actual prose, it was, where does this character come from? And it was the character of Rachel Marin. And we had just had our oldest daughter at that point. And I love the idea of a sort of a character in a crime novel or a thriller. Because I feel like a lot of times in thrillers or crime novels, you have a main character who can be sort of like a loner. You know, they're the ones who like, they're closing down the bar at 3 a.m. or they're out getting into trouble and doing whatever. Like they don't have really anyone depending on them, maybe like an ex-wife or four. But I said, what if you have a character like that, but at the same time has children that depend on her? She can't be out at the bar till 3 a.m. She can't be beating up people in the end. She can't be Batman because she has to come home and cook dinner. She has to pack kids for school, to get kids lunches for school. And I thought that right there is a conflict that'd be really interesting to explore. How do you balance trying to seek justice like Rachel does with being a good parent? And not just a good parent, but she's a single mother. It's very important to me that she's a single mother because she has a vulnerability that comes from essentially not really having any backup. It's just her. And that was sort of where these books started. And it was, I think once you have that character and you find a story to sort of support them, that's where it all came from. To me, like, if I didn't care about the character, I wouldn't write the book. Every book I write has to have sort of a heart where everything comes from. And if it didn't have that, it wouldn't be worth it to me to write.
Oh, I love that. And your love of your characters certainly comes through in the pages. You care about these people, and because you care, we care. That comes through. I mean, I was committed to these characters. They are also
literally
to me. Exactly. The questions are already coming in, so I want to get right to them. Catherine saying, hi, everyone. Hey, Catherine, welcome back. Top community member there. Gail, also top community member, would like to know, what is it like writing a female main character as different from writing a male? Is it more difficult for you or not? Jason, let us know.
I think whether you write a female or male character, there are going to be certain things that are universal that just being a human, you're going to understand. But there's certain things that you have to research to sort of understand them better. I am not a woman, but at the same time, I wanted this character to be female because I think I've talked about this a little bit, but part of the inspiration for the character was when our oldest daughter was very, very young, like 6 months old. My wife said something to me that was very profound, and it was basically, you don't know what it's like to sort of grow something inside of you and then have it exist outside of you and sort of not knowing what's happening at every moment. And as much as I try to be a good father and be a hands-on father, and I love my daughters to death and would take a bullet for them, there's a bond, I think, between a biological mother and a child that a father just doesn't understand because they've never experienced it. So I wanted to understand that better. So thankfully, I have a wife who has given birth to 2 amazing little girls. But I spoke to other mothers. Being that Rachel's a single mother, I spoke to single mothers because I think there's a very different emotional component to being a single mother versus a mother. So I talked to single mothers to be like, what are the hardships? What are the hard times? What are the good times? What are some things that your children do that make it harder? What are some things they do that make life easier? And I got some incredible sort of tidbits of information, a lot of which I included in the book. So I think to write a female, there's certain things like I said, are sort of universal to human experiences, but there's certain things that if you're going to write a character sort of outside your experience, you want to try to get it right so that if you're a woman or a mother or a single mother reading the book, it's going to hopefully ring true.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Catherine's also saying, she's saying congrats on the new release and great question. I agree, Catherine. Thank you. So Jason, was there anything that you got horribly wrong where either your wife or one of the single mothers that you interviewed was like, back it up, bro?
Horribly wrong. Oh man. I wouldn't say in Hideaway, nothing that comes to mind, but there's a scene in Stranger that as I was writing it, and it's in the finished book, and I think it's a great scene, but I'm expecting a few people to say, no, that wouldn't happen. But I know it's there, and I don't want to give away too much, but let's just say, Rachel takes a couple bumps and bruises in this book. And there's also a very intimate scene in this book between her and her boyfriend. And there's one moment where she sort of has an intimate moment not too far after she takes a couple bumps and bruises. And to me, it made sense for Rachel because she's sort of like, she's the kind of person who, in a way, kind of like Batman, she can't let her weaknesses show because she has to be strong for her family. But at the same time, she's, not in the best situation, but essentially makes, wants to be intimate with her boyfriend during these, when she's not feeling her best. So I'm curious to see if people are sort of like, oh, I totally get where you're going from the character, or no, this is not like, I would not have been in the mood during this. So that's the one that sort of springs to mind. I'm curious to see if people pick up on it.
Ooh, interesting. You have got us intrigued, Jason Pinter, because I thought you were talking about another scene. I'm not going to give it away. I thought you were talking about later in the book, a really intense fight scene. But
I'm trying to be very vague here because I don't want to give away too much.
Jason's like, I'm going to speak it in an anagram. P is for page 162.
Klingon active. Klingon.
Paragraph 3. Oh my gosh. Catherine is saying, I really enjoyed the first book in the series. Catherine, me too.
Thank
Yay.
you.
She said, what were the difficulties in continuing the story versus doing a standalone? Catherine always has the best questions. Top community member. Thank you for that, Catherine. Jason, tell us, standalone versus series.
Yeah. I think I knew I wanted this to be a series when I wrote it. So I think in doing that, it's a very delicate balance, because when you're writing a series, I wanted obviously closure with the storyline from the first book. So there's a mystery, there's a sort of thriller aspect, and that has to be tied up satisfactorily to where the reader's like, they're satisfied with the story. But at the same time, there are a couple of sort of larger threads that maybe don't pertain to that mystery, but to Rachel's larger life and her history and her backstory. And I purposely left a few of those open-ended so that they could tie into the next book and leave a bit of a mystery going forward. So I think with a standalone, you can essentially tie everything up in a, I don't want to say neat bow, because I like books that don't have neat bows, because real life doesn't have a bow. But with a series, you really want to leave a couple questions hanging to make the reader want to come back, not just because they love the characters, they want to spend time with them, because there are a couple things that they need answers to. And I think I tried to do that in Hideaway, leave a couple questions where readers could be like, oh, I need to know more about this, or, oh, what did that mean? And then I could sort of tantalize them with that, and then hopefully answer it in the next book.
Yes, and you did tantalize us. I feel like successful tantalization was achieved.
Successful tantalization. I'm going to get that on a t-shirt, by the way, successful tantalization. That'd be a good band name.
We're going to start that trending on Twitter, and it's going to be a t-shirt. Successful tantalization achieved. No, but from the end of the second book, I needed to know what happened to Rachel. I needed to know, was she able to start over? Did she just pick up and move again? I didn't know. I had to know. I also wanted to know about the other characters in the books, and I loved how you started to flesh those out more. The detectives, their partnerships, marriages. I do want to talk about the fact that you have a very diverse array of characters, and I love that. What I see on the page of your books looks like what I see when I look out my window. It's a diverse and inclusive world, and I love that. Not everyone does that, so I want to acknowledge you for doing that and doing it so well. We have gay characters, we have straight characters, we have people of color, we have literally everybody, and it's so wonderful to see that, and so necessary and needed and deserved. So thank you for doing that. So back to successful tantalization. One thing that I thought you did really well was you moved the story forward. And again, I think this is going to what Booklist and Publishers Weekly were talking about, including the humanity. So yes, we want to know about this very grotesque murder, and we're going to need to know more about your research process. But also, I need to know what's going to happen in Rachel's relationship. And there was one scene, and I think I tweeted you or I DM'd you, where you leave us hanging at the end of the chapter, and I'm not giving anything away because it's very early on, but Rachel notices as her boyfriend's leaving that he has not said that he loves her, and she thinks to herself, she's not sure what bothers her more, that he hasn't said it yet or that she doesn't want him to. And I was like, bam, that right there is the heart of Rachel Marin. She's a tough guy. She's a tough person. And she's wrestling with that and with her own humanity. And so that really ratcheted it up, because I was like, well, what's going on here? And I loved how you did both of that. Does that come intuitively to you? Did you go back and sort of enhance that, or tell us about that?
Well, I think, in this book, it was important to me that sort of Rachel is in a good place, but the problem is, because of what she's been through, she's not the kind of person who can sort of accept being in a good place, because she's always sort
Mm,
of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Because the last time she let her guard down, something absolutely terrible happened to her family. So as much as she loves, if not, I don't want to say likes or loves this man, she knows that sort of acknowledging these feelings can also make her let her guard down. And she knows
yes.
what happens if that does happen. And so it was very purposeful that she was going to be in a relationship. And I didn't want it to be sort of like a sitcom, like the conflicts come stupidly, like, oh, like, she sent a text he never got because he was in the subway and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, this is somebody who's really struggling with
Yeah.
emotional fragility and has a problem with intimacy. So that to me was really where it came from. In that scene in particular, she wants to care for him. She does care for him. She wants him to care about her. But I think once you say those words, it crosses into territory, and she's not sure if she wants to go there because of what it can mean for her family.
Yes, exactly. And I think that was such a poignantly, painfully vulnerable and human moment. Honestly, Jason, that was one of my favorite moments in the book. I just
Oh,
because it
mine too, actually. Yeah, it's funny because it's like, you write a thriller, and people think thriller, they think guns and bombs and running and all of this stuff, and maybe there's some of that, but it's like, to me, why do you care about that if you don't care about the characters? Like, I think it was Michael Connelly said, like, you never care about the flashlight, you care about who's holding it. And
ooh,
that to me is like, that's the epitome of these books, is that you can have fights and all this explosions and pyrotechnics, but if, like, you're essentially just reading sprites on a page, why do you care? So I really want to make these characters human, because I think then when you get to those scenes where there's real action and tension, the stakes are that much higher because you care about these people.
yes, yes, exactly, exactly. And I think that is a misconception that people have about thrillers, is that it is just the big, moments or whatever. And it's not.
Mhm.
And that's when you enrich it with these human
Yeah.
moments. It makes it so great. I want to get back to some questions coming in over here. Catherine saying, I love hearing about research. So, Jason, take us into your
Mhm.
research process, because you are a huge fan of Jeff Devers, as am I, who's been on the show
Oh yeah.
twice now. Jeff is known for his vigorous research, taking up
Yeah.
to 8 months to research a book. Tell us about your research process. And especially, I want to know about, because there's a gruesome murder. I screamed. I actually screamed. I startled my dog. And then I was like, shocked. And then I had to look up and see if that was true. And then I had this vision that maybe you're late night Googling how to kill someone in the most like crazy way. So tell us
Yeah.
about that.
Let's just say there's one death that in a way was inspired by Game of Thrones. And if you've watched Game of Thrones, this is not a show where, like, people die peacefully. So yeah, the book opens up with a character being murdered, but it's not just a murder. And the sort of the impetus for his death is that the person who's killing him is not only teaching him a lesson, but also sort of making it serve as a warning to other people. So it had to be really, really, really bad, to the point where it would literally scare off other people from doing what he did. So to sort of research that, and I don't want to give away too much, but
Yeah.
I did a lot of research into, like, really sort of freaky things and freaky ways of tortures and maiming and killing, and let's just say certain animals.
No
Because I
dogs.
really no dog. No, 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 no dog. No dog. No fun animals are hurt in this book. I promise you that. But it had to be gruesome. It had to be bad, because the person who did it was sending a message, and you can't
Yes.
have it sort of like be warm and fuzzy, and it can't be
Yeah.
quick. It's not quick.
Yes.
So I wanted to get the details right, because I sort of wanted to freak the reader out a little bit, to the
Yeah.
point where if they were in this story and they heard about what happened to this guy, they would think twice before giving any more information away, because they wouldn't want it to happen to themselves. Um,
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
You did that. You did that well. And I'm just picturing you late at night by the light of a flashlight, Googling ancient Game of Thrones torture techniques. Jason,
Oh
you're probably
yeah.
on
I
a
mean,
watch list now.
if the FBI is looking at my Google search history, like, I'm on a no fly zone. I wouldn't be allowed anyone near the Capitol for the next 20 years.
There's a van outside Jason's house right now with people looking with binoculars. Thanks. But Jason is willing to do that for us, you guys. He's willing to go on a watch list to give us
That's
this
true.
book.
Although, to be fair, like, we have if there's a van outside of our house, it's probably delivering diapers for our kids. So
Oh my gosh, I love it. And this is saying such a great variety of characters. How difficult is that? Yeah, tell us about that.
I think sort of like you said, I wanted to write a book where, it's weird. People like even like you say, thank you for writing a diverse cast of characters, and like to me, it's not something to be thanked for because it's just it exists. If you write a book where like every character is a straight white person, like that's not realistic. That's not the world we live in. It's not. It shouldn't be
And
the
yet
world we live
people
in.
do.
People do. So, but so to me, it was very important that like like you said, there are characters of color, there are characters of different sexual orientations and gender orientations, but I also in a way didn't want to call such attention to it because that's not their story. They
Exactly.
exist. They're like, if they're gay, they're gay. That's who they are. If they're in a gay marriage, that's their gay marriage. It's not like I
It's
didn't
just
want it
their
to be sort of
marriage,
an
right?
artificial conflict. And it's sort of funny. My wife and I are we're binging Schitt's Creek, which is I love this show.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a wonderful, wonderful gay relationship in that show between David and Patrick. And I read an interview with, I think it was with Dan Levy, who's one of the creators, as
Mm-hmm.
far as that relationship goes, and how like there's really no homophobia on the show, which is anytime you have a show that has that much about character sexuality, there's bound to be some character who comes out of the woodwork and is like, I disagree because I was born in 1694 and don't blah, blah, blah. But he said, like, I don't want any homophobia on this show. I want these characters' lives to just be who they are. I want to see these relationships evolve naturally. There's none of this on my show. And I don't want to say there's no homophobia or anything like that or racism in these books, but to me, it's important to show these characters just living the way they live. That if they're
Exactly.
gay, they're gay. If they're a character of color, they're a character of color. And they certainly deal with things I have never dealt with, but I wanted them to just exist in this world because they do in real life. And that was really important to me to sort of replicate the real world and have a bit of a mirror and just be authentic.
Yes, exactly, exactly. That's what I love about it is that you have a diverse cast of characters, but that's not the entirety or even the main point of each of their storylines. It's just a
Right.
by the way, the same that whoa, I just had my coffee in my sustainable glass straw because I'm too excited, Jason. I'm too caffeinated. No,
That's
but
right. I got my water here. So
it's a by the way, and that's how it should be,
yes.
and it's fantastic.
I
Catherine
don't
saying,
want. I don't want to say. I don't want to say like just. I don't know if it should be. I think there's projects that I'm working on right now where there are characters that are again sort of diverse. And one of the things I've learned is that there's certain things that should be told by people who've experienced certain things.
mhm,
There are
yes,
things that African Americans, that Black people have experienced that I've never experienced, and because of that, I'm not the person to be writing about. That's not to say I should ignore those things, but they're better people than me to tackle certain subjects. And I
yeah.
think that's one of the things that's most important as a creator nowadays, to sort of make sure that not only is there room for people to tell those stories, but that they're encouraged to do so. And we're not trying to, like, people like me aren't trying to suck the oxygen out of the room because it's not our place.
Yeah, and yeah, thank you for saying that. Exactly, I totally agree. Catherine's saying, "Are you even really a thriller writer if your search history doesn't look like Jason's?" And she said, "LOL." Exactly, exactly. If you're not searching ancient gruesome ways to kill people, get out.
Although to
Um,
be fair, if you're a thriller writer and your search history is like teacups and like flowers, like I'm even more scared because that means you're learning how to do really freaky things with flowers and teacups. So if anything, that like it's like the scarier people hide in broad daylight.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, I like that. Exactly. So if we see a teacup or a poisonous flower murder in Jason's next book, we know it happened here on A Mighty Blaze first.
Yes.
We'd like to. I kept on saying, what is your writing process like? Do you know the ending before you begin writing, or do you learn it as you write? Yeah, Jason, walk us through. Are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? What's it look like?
For the most part, I'm a pantser. I start a book and I let it unfold, I guess, organically. But when I start a book, I generally have sort of three demarcation points in mind, and that I know the opening scene. So the opening scene, you see. I'm not giving anything away because it's the first chapter, but Rachel's son's teacher, and you see what happens to him. And so I had that scene in mind where you see what happens to this guy. Then I always have a sort of a scene around the middle of the book where there's a twist or something happens, like something that sort of sends it careening off in a different direction, like a big set piece or a big moment that changes things or ups the stakes. And then
Yeah,
I generally have a sense of how the book is going to end, either the ending scene and what's going to happen, or how I want the sort of like the mystery or story to be wrapped up. I don't always know specifically how those scenes go. I just know they exist. But at the same time, it's like a good sort of like, if you're taking like a long road trip, you're not just driving from New York to LA. It's like, okay, I'm going to stop in Boston, then I'm going to stop in Chicago, then I'm going to stop in, Iowa City or so. Like you have a couple points that you can sort of aim towards. And so to me, having a couple moments in the story that I know are coming, it's good to sort of be able to aim there a little bit.
But Jason, if you're a pantser, you're just following where the story goes, which by the way, I love that. I am too. Do you ever find the story has led you down a dark alley and it's one way, a dead end, and you gotta back it on up?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there are times like if I'm writing a book, I write almost every day, even if it's only like 100 words, just to sort of keep it fresh in my mind. But there are times like I get into a corner, I'm like, crap, what do I do now? I'm not sure how to get myself out of this. And you have to step back a little bit. But so I say I'm a pantser in that I start with generally no outline. But by the time I'm done with the book, I have like 25 pages, single space of notes that I just jot down because things that come to me as I'm writing, like literally, if you look at my text messages, I have like 1,000 texts to myself, which is like, I'm walking down the street, I'm in line at Starbucks, I'm doing something, and it's like, oh, this moment, like I have an idea, or this is how this happens next, or this is how I get out of this jam. And I text it to myself or write it down in this notes app, just so I don't forget it. So anytime I sort of get jammed up, I always have to like step back a little bit. And weirdly enough, like, I guess maybe it's the way my brain works, like it sort of works itself out. It's always like unraveling things and then go back like, okay, if the character keeps going forward, they get stuck, but they need to back up 5 feet and then they find another way around it.
So you do end up having to delete a lot and rewrite, or?
Yeah, I would say I don't tend to edit a lot as I go along unless I get stuck. Like if there are times like I write something and it's like I have no idea what happens next. The muse is like off drunk in a corner somewhere. Needs a coffee and a shower. And then it's sort of like, okay, maybe I need to maybe not delete this chapter, but step back a little bit. And like I said, sort of find an alternate route around there. But it can be tricky being a pantser because that happens sometimes. You sort of write yourself into a corner and then it's like, okay, where do I go from here? But at the same time, like, Stranger at the Door is like my 8th novel. And I guess I trust myself that I know that I can figure out a way out. And if I write myself into a corner, a solution will present itself to me at some point. And I guess I trust myself in that way.
Oh, I love that. Okay. So you didn't have that trust on book one.
Book one. Oh, I don't think I mean, for the most part, I don't really think I knew what I was doing on book one. I worked really hard on, it was also almost 15 years ago at this point. I think my first book, The Mark, came in 2007. So which is 14 years ago this summer. I don't think I really fully knew. I knew I wrote a lot of drafts in that book because I didn't know what I was doing fully. I think now at this point, having written sort of eight books, like I know I'm doing a lot more. It doesn't mean I'm more confident in my, like, I think anytime you start a book, there's a sense of like, how do you write book again? What am I doing? What are these keyboard things? Like, but I'm also like, you know what? I've done this before. I can do it again. Just have faith in the process, and it usually works itself out.
I love that. So Jason, I know from your Twitter that you're a night owl writer, by preference, if you can. So do you feel like, you said you feel better if you write 100 words a day. So if you're having an off day, you still sit down at night and you pound out those 100 words, or are you like, you know what, I'm just having a bad day, I'm going to skip?
I would say with the caveat on being a late night writer is that I used to be a late night writer. Now I have 2 small children, so I'm a late night bottle cleaner and lunch maker for the next day. I work at night sometimes because the only chance I have with 2 small kids. I'm usually up somewhere between 5:30 and 6:30. 6:30 if it's a good day. 5 if my younger daughter is really deciding to make our lives a living hell. But I would say when I'm writing a book, I try to keep it fresh. So I don't write every day, but at least 6 days a week. And there's some days where just like, it's not working. It's not coming to you. So I'll literally write a few sentences and sometimes it'll go from there. And sometimes it's like, you know what? I move forward, even if it's just an inch. And I think that's sort of the trick with writing is that like, the hardest thing about writing is you don't want to look at the whole book down the road because then it's like, oh my God, I'm on a blank page. I need to write 90 or 100,000 words. I need to send 350 pages to my editor by this date.
Yeah.
I'm going to go have a drink, a lot of drinks.
I'm sweating.
Yeah. But again, it's sort of like you're going to write it 500, 1,000, 2,000 words at a time. And eventually it's going to sort of come together. And again, it's sort of like having faith in the process a little bit, but even like, working full time, having 2 small children during a pandemic and an insurrection now, because we need more fun.
Right.
Just being able to inch forward a little bit, it keeps your juices flowing, keeps your brain working. When I'm working on a book, I'm thinking about it constantly. So even if I'm not like literally sitting down and typing, the story is sort of working itself out in my head a little bit. So often to the point where when I do sit down, it flows easier because I've already thought it through.
Oh, Jason, you're getting hearts up on that. I am also a late night writer and definitely a night person. Who else is a night owl in the audience today? Are you a night owl? Or are you an early bird? Tell us what's going on. Tell us if you have any comments. We have just a few minutes left with Jason. So if you do have any last questions or comments for him, go ahead and type them right in the comments. I'll get them over to him. Welcome, David. Jason, what is one thing that you want people to take from this book?
The book. I want them to buy it.
Yes. And I want to say that you can buy this book. It's in the link. It's in the comments. You can buy this book today through bookshop.org, which supports independent bookstores. And that's really important because since the pandemic descended, one independent bookstore a week has gone out of business, which is really heartbreaking and awful. And when we come out of this, if you want to have independent bookstores to browse and the joy of browsing aisles and smelling the scent of a fresh page and print, we've got to support them. And today you can buy Jason's book through our very special partnership with bookshop.org, and that directly supports independent bookstores and is on sale today. So buy it right now. And that is linked in the comments. Gail asking, how do you define the difference between a mystery and a thriller? Gail, great question. Top community member, thank you.
I'm going to explain this. I said this on Twitter, I think it was last year, and it got like 1 million retweets. So a mystery is what my young daughter is putting into her mouth. A thriller is getting to her. A thriller is getting to her before she swallows it.
Oh my God, I love it. Okay.
Yeah. So basically that's sort of it. I sort of consider these books sort of like, but they have both elements to them because there is a mystery, like in Hideaway, there is a murder and you don't know who's committed it. And Rachel has to figure out who killed this person. But at the same time, like there are action scenes and there are fight scenes, and it's not sort of like, she's not walking around in a trench coat with a little magnifying glass. Like she's out in the field running around doing stuff. And the same thing at the end of Stranger Things, like there's a pretty big crazy action scene. So I do think thrillers and mysteries very much overlap a lot of the times. Thrillers can have mysteries can have thriller elements. But I think that's sort of like a mystery is generally like a whodunit and a thriller is a howdunit. But at the same time, it's like I think about that like my children, like what are they doing versus stop that.
Oh, I love that. Catherine's saying that's fantastic. And Nissa is saying LOL at the descriptions. Fantastic. David saying his copy arrives today. Yay, David.
Oh, good.
And Nissa saying buy it. Also, she's an early bird. She has to be at school at 6:30 a.m. My goodness, Anissa, thank you for joining us today.
And if you can't buy it, you can get it from your library.
You get it from your library. Great. Catherine would like to know, will there be another in the series? Yeah. All right, Jason, what's next for Rachel Marin?
That is my hope. I think, it comes down to, I guess how many people read them. That's certainly my hope. I have sort of I know where the next book will go ideally. And it, like sort of anything in publishing and writing, it comes down to, is there a demand for these books? Does my publisher think that, enough people will keep reading them? And that's certainly my hope. I love this character. I know I want to keep writing more books in the series. So that's sort of, my hope is that people keep reading them and recommending them to their friends and talking about them to the point where, I can continue the series as long as I have stories to tell.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's one thing that people may not realize is that we actually have power. We, the readers, have
Yes,
power.
100%, 100%.
So I used to think of voting as something that you did every 4 years, at the ballot box, at the polls, but actually every purchase is a vote. It's a vote for the world you want to see. It's a vote for the books you want to see on the shelves. It's a vote.
Yep.
It's a vote for the product you want to see. It's a vote for which stores succeed. And you can see that none more clearly than during this pandemic. Literally every dollar counts. And so when you can vote with your wallet for the books you want to see, hint, hint, and that's really empowering because it's up to us, and that's really pretty cool. So thank you for that. But you already do have an idea of where she's going next then.
Oh, absolutely, 100%, absolutely. And like I said, it's up to readers to we want to make sure that readers will hopefully come along for the next one, and that enough people, the second book literally just came out today, so hopefully it'll do well enough and sell enough copies, enough people will read it that it'll justify doing more, because I certainly would love to write more.
Perfect. We had a few questions come in early from different people. So just want to get to those really quickly. Anne from Psychological Thrillers Group saying, was this the first title you knew? You knew you wanted it, or I think she's asking about the title. So tell us about the title, Stranger at the Door.
This was the original title for Stranger at the Door. Hideaway was not the original title. Hideaway, the original title that we sold on was actually The Broken Woman. And the reason it was called that is because there's a great Hemingway quote that I love. And I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's essentially, everyone breaks sometimes, but some people get stronger at the broken places. And I love that quote so much. And to me, it so epitomized Rachel Marin, because at the beginning of Hideaway, she is broken. Her family is broken. Her spirit is broken. Her family is broken. And she forges herself in fire to become stronger. So that was not only that, but also the murder, the sort of the inciting incident. That book is a murder, and the character is sort of more or less broken in some ways, physically. So to me, that the title of The Broken Woman not only resonated because of Rachel, because she was a woman who was broken and reforged herself in fire, and because there was an actual broken woman in terms of the mystery. We then changed the title was changed to Hideaway. The publisher felt that I did agree with them, that it made Rachel feel like sort of more of a damsel in distress, which she is definitely not. So I got that, where that came from. A Stranger at the Door, actually, when we pitched Hideaway to publishers, I wrote up a couple pitches for what would hopefully be the next books in the series, so that we let them know not only do we want it to be a series, but I knew where it was going to go. And the original title that we pitched to publishers 2.5 years ago now was A Stranger at the Door. So that has always been the title for this book. Hideaway changed. Hideaway is originally The Broken Woman, but Stranger at the Door has always been the title. I have like a 50-50 win percentage when it comes to keeping titles.
Let's see what happens with title number 3. Will Jason continue on his streak, or will he?
that book I know the title for, and it's awesome, so I don't want to say anything.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm dying to know what it is. Patricia would like to know what has surprised, she said, 2-part question. She said, what has surprised you the most in your own writing experience? And what was the worst part of the experience? And then we have just one more question after that, and we're going to let you go.
So what was the thing that surprised me most in my writing experience?
Yes.
I think from the beginning that I run an independent publishing company called Polis Books. And when I was starting that company, I took a couple of years off of writing because I had to start the company, get the trains running. It was a basically 24/7 job. So I took a couple of years off of writing. And then I think when I went back to writing, there was a concern, like, am I going to remember how to do this? So I remember that really, I was kind of scared because I knew I had some talent without being too conceited. Like, I'd written 5 or 6 books at that point, which had gotten pretty good reviews. But there was a concern, like, okay, I took some time off. It's like, am I going to be able to do this again? And I think it took a little bit of time for me to sort of get those muscles back into gear. I wrote a couple things before Hideaway that just weren't all that good and didn't work. But then Hideaway it clicked in a way that I loved. So that was both, I guess, surprising and I guess anxiety relieving that I knew how to do this again. It was like, like riding a bike. Like, it took I was a little wobbly at first, but I eventually got back on.
Oh, I love that. And I think the second part of her question was, what was the worst part of the process for you?
I would say I don't want to say worst, because it was also wonderful. The hardest part of writing this book is that I started writing this book essentially right after our youngest daughter was born. So I was writing the majority of this book when we had both a newborn at home, a toddler at home, and I was working a full-time job in addition to writing these books. So
And you
it
slept
was
well.
like it was I didn't sleep. It was absolute madness. Having a newborn, having a toddler, and also working another full-time job while writing a pretty involved book. So this was like every other book I've written to this point, like I've had the chance to like sit down and write for a couple hours here and there. With this book, I don't think I ever really had a few hours. It was like 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there, maybe half an hour. So the majority of this book was written in like 15-minute bursts, 20-minute bursts. So it was very different process because I just didn't have any time. It was like, okay, one girl's taking a nap. I have 20 minutes before this happens, go. And so that was really, really hard because I was never really able to get into a flow with this book just because we had two very small children at home who needed to be fed and changed and taken care of and snuggled and put down for naps. So I don't want to say worse because my children, like they're my blessings. They're the greatest things in my life. But it was hard. Being a parent is hard. Trying to write books with two kids under 2 is really, really hard.
Yeah, but you know what, Jason, I love this because I think there's this feeling out there, and I know I've been susceptible to it, that it's not possible for someone like me. A lot of us have that idea of, oh, I can't do it because I have a full-time job or I have small kids or whatever, insert the reason here, X. And you're showing us that actually you don't have to have, hours a day in a quiet, a room of one's own, as Virginia Woolf said. Actually, it is possible to write a book in 15-minute increments with 2 small kids.
Yeah.
Launching a business, holding
it's
down
hard as hell, but it's hard as hell, but you do it. I mean, that's one of the things that sort of like infuriates me. Like if I'm at a conference, I'm on a panel and like somebody will come up to me and say like, I just don't have time to write. I'm like, okay, like why don't you have time to write? And they're like, because I work a 9-to-5 job. And I'm like, really? That's why you can't write? I have a 9-to-5 job plus 2 small kids. Like I find time to write. Get up an hour early. Don't go to the bar that night. Don't go bowling. Don't go to the movie. Get up early. Still like, don't tell me you don't have time to write. What you're doing is choosing to do other things instead of writing. So I don't have sympathy. I have sympathy for like, I know people who have written 8 and 3/4 months pregnant. I know women who've written like, right after giving birth, and if they find time to do that, you can find time to do that. So it's not perfect, but like Stephen King, if you read On Writing, which is like one of the best books about the craft of writing ever. I think he wrote when he lived in a trailer with his wife and children, and he literally wrote on a typewriter on an ironing board. Wow. And so like there are people who have had it way more difficult than you and I and made it work. And so I tell people like, if you want to make it work, just make it work. Find a way.
Jason Pinter empowering us all. Thank you so much. Gail is saying
I'm like Oprah, but better.
Yeah, thanks for coming to Jason's Super Soul Talk. Gail is saying congratulations, Jason, and good luck with the new book. And Nissa is saying thank you both. Welcome, Mary. Welcome, Cecilia. So last question from Kirstine from Thrillaholics. She wants to know, do you read your reviews on Amazon? She's heard that authors are not supposed to. And she's wondering if you're able to actually resist. She said, I'm thinking how disheartening it must be for authors to see their work sometimes torn apart, because let's face it, no matter how good it is, there are always those who don't like it and don't hold back. If you do read them, how do you cope with potential criticism? Ooh, love that, Christine. Thank you.
Yeah, that's tough. Like I could easily lie and say, I don't read my reviews. It means nothing to me. I'm an artist. I create and then I put it out in the world. But no, I read a lot of my reviews. I can't say I read all of them, just there's only so much time in the day, but I do read a chunk of them. It's one thing I think that helps me is that if somebody says something really good about me, I don't believe it. And if someone says something really bad about me, I don't believe it. Because I don't think you're as good as your best reviews. And I don't think you're as bad as your worst reviews. So if someone loves my book, I'm thankful, but I don't think like, wow, I'm amazing. And if somebody hates my book, I don't think like, wow, I suck.
So you only believe the middle of the road reviews where people are like, this book was fine. You're like,
I think I look at it from the perspective of, are people reading my books? Does somebody want to publish me? If so, then I must be doing something right. Like if I sucked at what I did, I would have never had one book published.
Right.
Now I'm on my 8th. And that's not including children's books. So I can't be terrible. Maybe I'm not great, but I'm not terrible. And I think at this point, I want to ideally make a career out of it. I do read the reviews. It is wonderful to see when people say they love a book. It sucks when people say they hate it. Once in a while, like the bad reviews I don't mind are ones where I can read a bad review and say, you know what, I get it. It's a legitimate, like, maybe I don't agree with you, but it's a legitimate criticism. The ones that drive me crazy, and you like, every author has these, where it's like you'll get a 1-star review and the person will be like, I ordered this book, I accidentally bought another copy by accident, 1 star. And I'm like, this person really went out of their way to give me 1 star because they accidentally ordered another copy, and somehow that's my fault and they're going to drag my rating down. So that drives me nuts. Yes. A bad review where somebody has legitimate concern or complaint, what can you do? Everyone's allowed to have their opinion. It's the ones that sort of like complain about something that is not the author's fault, where I'm like, you took time out of your day to slag me for nothing. Like, I hope you hit a pothole and spill your coffee all over yourself on the way home.
Yeah, exactly. My friend Amy got a bad review because the person got a copy of their book, but then they lost it in their house, and they were like, I could not find this book. 2 stars.
Yeah. That to me, so you talk about like Google search histories. People who leave those reviews are sociopaths. Yes. I don't care if you Google medieval torture, murder, mayhem, horrible things, like, you're researching for a thriller novel. It's the people that leave bad reviews because it's like,
because they can't
font was too big. Font was too big, didn't know how to change it on their e-reader. And they leave a 1-star review, and I just want to like go and shake them and like, I worked for a year on this and you couldn't figure out the font button. Like, come on.
Yeah, come on, man. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
Well, Jason Pinter, you are a delight. It is so great to have you here. Thank you for telling us the inside story and all your secrets with Stranger Out the Door, out today and available.
You're way better at this than I am.
What's that?
You're way better at the sort of like the Vanna White, like Wheel of Fortune, like, than I am.
Jason,
I look like a doofus.
Listen, this is not a skill that everyone can do, okay? You can't.
I cannot do it. I will need practice.
Yeah, exactly. I should have a manicure, but that's okay. But thank you so much for telling us all about your brand new book. And again, this is available today via bookshop.org. And you can support independent bookstores and get your hands on this hot read. So thank you for telling us. Tweet your every thought, but only about the quality of the writing, to Jason. The link to his book is in the comments, and we will see you next time right here on A Mighty Blaze. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you all. Thank you.